Hi and welcome to Makeup440plus. I've had some requests to do some foiling and I wanted to be really clear about this. So being that I'm on a bit of a roll filming today and I've got a bit of spare time, I thought I would just throw this one in. Now I've got this plummy shadow on today, so I thought I would do some foiling over the top of it. So the pigment I'm using for the foiling is this, it's called Penny by NYX, and it's this beautiful plummy rose gold colour, so I thought it would be ideal to do over this shadow. The other thing I'm using is eye drops. You can use water, but eye drops tend to hold the foiling together a little better than water, or you can use Fix Plus or some sort of medium like that, like any sort of setting spray works as well, but I just personally happen to like eye drops for doing this because they lubricate the eyes and they just keep the shadow from cracking and splitting. Now I've got a little mixing tray here, so I've just popped a bit of pigment in one and a bit of the eye drops in the other. Now I want to be really clear, the difference between foiling and applying wet shadow is really different. Applying your shadow wet is simply just wetting your eyeshadow and applying it all over your lid. Foiling is quite different. It's using a brush, like at the moment this is just a Coastal Scents fluffy brush that I'm going to use. So and I've chosen white so you can see how I mix the colours. So applying wet shadow is just, and my eye is still watering as you can see, applying shadow wet is just a matter of, like I've done with my Kat Von D shadows and applied them wet, so just using a Laura Geller setting spray, any sort of setting spray, and I just wet the whole eyeshadow and apply it all over my lid. Foiling is slightly different than that, so I'm just going to mix. So I've got a little bit of the shadow, and I'm just going to move the shadow from one tray into the other to get a really nice paste. I want it nice and wet on the brush so that the brush is splayed, because foiling is very similar to the sort of thing that you would do with art, with when you put rose leaf is the word I'm looking for, or gold leaf or something like that down on a photo frame. You're actually not applying it everywhere. So I'm just going to zoom in and I'll move the camera a bit so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'll zoom in so you can see, and I'm just going to use the viewfinder so that you can see. So foiling, I've got the brush and you can see the end is quite moist with the paste that I've made. I could probably actually make it a little bit wetter because I want the bristles to be quite splayed. So I'm just adding a couple more drops of nail polish, of eye drops. Any drops will do, it doesn't matter what they are. So you want a really nice wet paste. So you can see that I've mixed this in here and it's quite a wet paste. So basically what I want to do is wipe some of that moisture off there, and basically when you foil, this is what you want to do. You just want to run it really lightly, the tip of the brush, back and forth over where you want the look. So I'm using it through the centre of my lid to highlight that centre area that I'm going to, that's where I'm putting the most colour down. So I'm just flicking the brush across the centre, just flicking back and forth, just touching the ball of my lid, not patting it, just flicking it back and forth. So I'll just add a little bit more pigment because there's a bit too much. This is the joy of foiling, is making it the right consistency. I don't use the cap because I find that it's not really hygienic. Plus you're putting that mixing medium and wet gel back into, or wet product back into the dry product. So I use a mixing palette. So a clear CD case works really, really well. So I just want to have my brush damp with the product, but not sopping wet with the product. Now if you want to, so my brush is really splayed out, it's messy, so basically I'm just going to keep foiling the center of that lid and center of this one. So I'm just flicking back and forth, flicking back and forth, flicking back and forth, so foiling the center of that eye look, so it gives you that bit of intensity. Now if you want to foil the whole of your lid, it's more of a stippling motion that you do. So actually stipple it over your lid rather than applying it wet. So you're stippling it over wherever you want that foiled effect to be. So it's quite different than applying shadow wet. So on this eye, if I was to apply wet shadow, I would apply it so that I had a really good, this would be applying my shadow wet, so that I had a really, really good finish of shadow, really intense coverage, you know, missing no bits, whereas stippling it is quite different. So you've still got bits of the other shadow that are coming through because you've stippled it on you, just like you would apply, just like you would foil in applying gold leaf to a photo frame. You just want to stipple it on. It's not that packed wet motion where you're actually, this is not foiling, this is applying shadow wet. So foiling is quite different. You want to just flick it if you want it in the middle, in a really light flicking motion to highlight the center of your eye, and if you want it elsewhere then you just literally stipple. And I know that it seems the same, but I'm hoping that you can see that those two lids are quite different in the effect that as it dries you can see that they're quite different in how the shadow has applied. So I'll just top this one up. So applying shadow wet, so wet application and then foiled application. Either just this highlight through the center or just stippling it. And you can see that, I'm hoping that you can see that there's quite a difference to the colour payoff when you foil to if you just apply your shadow wet. So, and you can of course do double foiling, like if you wanted to you could put a definitely put, like if you've foiled this lid for example, you could put a gold and foil the center just so that you've got that colour through the center is more intense. I've still got a bit left, so we'll just repeat that again. So just applying the colour to the tip of the brush, and I've sort of got the brush in a fine sort of paintbrush type look, and I'm simply just swiping it very lightly over the, I wonder if I turn on an angle if you can see what I'm doing. So you're just sort of flicking it across your lid rather than in that packing motion that you would do if you were applying shadow wet like this. You know, you really are packing that shadow on, whereas the foiling again is just this flicking to get the colour or stippling to get the the effect that you want. So I find quite a substantial difference. I'm hoping it shows up on camera. The difference between applying your shadow wet and then foiling it is quite a different effect. Now I'll just tidy up my eyes, being that I've got that colour doesn't actually blend out, so I'm just going to take another fluffy brush and apply some dry powder to dry pigment, just to blend that out at the top. And then, hair, one of my videos. And then again on this side, just applying that shadow just to blend out that harsh edge. So foiling, I hope you can see the difference. And then applying shadow wet. So I've just blended out the harsh lines. And again, I've blended out the harsh lines on this side as well. So that's a foiling lid. So I do hope you can see the difference on camera to the two different looks. It's not as complicated as it sounds. It's really just more the application of it that is, there really is a difference between applying your shadow wet and foiling. So I really do hope you can see the difference. So this is the eye that I just did the wet application of shadow, and this is the eye that I did the foiling on. So as I say, you can use water, but I find water generally the eyeshadow splits or cracks. It just doesn't, because the water evaporates, whereas with when you use eye drops or something to that effect, you definitely, the pigmentation stays. But I really just hope you can see the difference, because it's quite dark outside at the moment between the wet application and then the foiling application. So and then just again, the blending is the same if you are blending that colour out. So yeah, hope you found that helpful, because I know a couple of people have asked for a foiling video. So I hope that that has helped you and helped you to understand the difference between foiling and applying wet shadow. If you've got any other questions like that, I'd like to see anything else, or foiling done. Maybe I'll do just foiling on the inside of my eye with another look, just to make the centre of my lid pop. So I often do foiling on the inside of on the ball of my lid, so that the colour pops, because I've got hooded lids. So it works really well if you've got hooded lids, just to make that centre colour pop a bit. So hope you've enjoyed, hope you're all keeping well, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for watching, bye.